Hello and welcome to my latest 100 days, where I will attempt a 100-day Nuzlocke Arc challenge on the beautiful map that is Crystal Isles. Now, if you aren't familiar with the main rules of a Nuzlocke, I will leave a link in the description below, but it is a challenge that has originated from the mainline Pokemon titles. I will explain how I've adapted this challenge to Arc as the video progresses, but for now, here are some of the key rules. I will only be able to tame one of each creature, and also only be able to tame one creature per set area of the map. Before we do get into the video, however, I would just like to remind you all that if you do enjoy the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We are so close to my end of year goal of 30,000 subscribers, so it would be fantastic to get that over the line. With that out of the way, let's begin our latest 100 days. We started off on day 1 by spawning in a strange wooden box. Whoever had built this thing was clearly a genius of an architect. I walked down the stairs and made my way outside, where I found a sign with some words of advice for me. Inside the storage box positioned to the left of the sign was a nice little starter kit which had been kindly left for me. Just down the cliff edge I found another sign which had been left for me. It told me to pick one of 3 starter dinos, so I had a choice of those. After evaluating my options, which comprised of an Ankylosaurus and Baryonyx, I decided to go with the third option, which was a Gigantopithecus. I named him Caesar after the Planet of the Apes series, as one of the key rules in a Nuzlocke is that every creature must be nicknamed. With Caesar secured, I parachuted off the cliff and began my 100-day adventure. I would be able to tame a creature every 5 days, with the first tameable right away, so I began to gather the necessary resources to make some narcotics with, which I would use to make trank arrows. Things were going pretty well, until out of nowhere I got grabbed by this level 95 Caprasuchus and killed. Luckily there was a spawn zone nearby, so after spawning nearby, I made my way back to my body and Caesar and gathered my kit. On the beach, a level 20 Triodon had landed right near me, so I decided to tame it. Quite why I didn't hold out for a higher level, I'm not too sure, but after a quick bowler it only took one trank arrow to the head to knock out. I then killed a nearby Sarco for some prime meat down the beach with the mighty Caesar, who was already becoming quite a good early game companion. With the prime meat from the Sarco, the Triodon tamed up almost immediately, and I named him Petrie, after Land Before Time character. I had also now made a raft, and with my 2 creatures I set off to explore other parts of the map, to try and find a base location. Unfortunately though, I didn't get very far on my raft when I was attacked by a rogue Sarco, and both my creatures were pushed off the raft. While I managed to just about save Caesar, poor Petrie, who was about 5 minutes old at this point, perished. With Petrie dead, I was now in a difficult position. I would now no longer be able to tame another Pteranodon for the rest of this challenge, and I would also be stuck without a flyer until the earliest of day 5. Wait, hang on a minute. What are you doing in my video?
Hey, what about my world?
What's wrong with it? Are you from a childish game?
That is not true. Hero Wars has vibrant graphics, cool gameplay, and a user-friendly interface.
Oh really? Alright then, I better tell you all about it then.
Yeah, tell them more about it.
That's right guys, this video is sponsored by Hero Wars. Now in Hero Wars, everyone can find a character that suits themselves, as we have cyborgs, aliens, vampires and furries. Anyway, I've been playing for about 2 weeks now, and I still have only unlocked about a third of the playable characters. My next goal is to unlock Chaba, who just looks incredible. He's an awesome tank who literally devours enemies. But the real endgame here is Celeste, who is a real S tier. Don't tell my girlfriend here, but they have also just released this brand new sexy outfit for her. Christmas magic has also come to Hero Wars. From December the 24th begins the best time to start playing. You can get some huge presents and cool items, such as new heroes, decorating the Christmas tree, and progress through the advent calendar to learn the mysterious story. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Here's a question for you. Where can you get 30,000 coins, 600 emeralds, and 5 awesome heroes to start dominating in Hero Wars right away? Too slow? The answer is in the link in the description below. Thanks again to Hero Wars for sponsoring this video. Download it using my link in the description and start playing right now. This meant that Caesar and I set off into the jungle to explore the beautiful map of Crystal Isles by ourselves. Now Crystal Isles is a map that I've not spent too much time on, so I was happy to do this. For some reason I can't honestly explain though, just before day 5, I decided to try and trank out this tropical crystal wyvern. Now, tranking out these wyverns does give you the crystals to tame the crystal wyverns with. But I ended up spending a good half a day running away from this wyvern, retreating back into the water whenever I had sufficient stamina. I think he eventually ended up getting stuck in some trees or something, so with my tail between my legs I retreated back inland, where I continued to attempt to build a trap out of wooden dinosaur gateways for the wyvern. I'm not really sure why I persisted with this, and while I was at least smart enough to jump off Caesar so it wouldn't aggro on him, this ended up with just me dying over and over. After a while, I did decide to give up on this project and head inland, where I encountered my old arch nemesis. And no, I don't mean the raptor that is currently trying to ruin my day. You see, as poor Caesar didn't have access to a saddle, he takes rather a lot of damage, and he was on rather low HP as we made our way inland. Even after we killed the raptor, it wasn't over yet, as by the far the worst thing in the entire game, microraptors appeared. After level 85 killed me, I made my way back towards my body, where I saw the heartbreaking message that Caesar, our starter tame, was a goner. Without Caesar, I was now forced to bounce back. So, without realising, I broke one of the most important rules of a Nuzlocke and tamed another Pteranodon. Now, don't worry, I do fix this error very shortly, but yes, clearly the microraptors had scrambled my brain. With Petrie V2, who was shortly to be released, I did find my base spots where I would get set up. I was in the middle of the map towards the left hand side, not too far away from Green Obelisk. I was high up away from any dinos, and surrounded by plenty of metal, which is one of my requirements for a base spot. Now, with a base spot confirmed, I decided it was time to move away from the classic Rampy move of living off 2 foundations for 25 days, and I decided to actually build an actual base, with refining forges and also a smithy. I then realised my error when I logged on the next day, and renamed Petrie before setting him on wandering and unclaiming him. Now dinoless once more, I decided to finish my base and get a full roof over my head, before heading out to look for a new dino. As I had now released Petrie after my mistake, it had reopened my day 5 dino slot, so on day 8 I headed back out. I had my sights set on a flyer, and in the map location known as the Halcyon Plains, I found myself in Argentavis. I'll quickly say that if you do wonder how I know where my location is, if you hold down H on your keyboard while playing Ark, it will tell you the name of the location of the map that you are in each time. In my search for prime meat, I left the Argentavis, but then came back just in time to stop this scorpion from killing it. While I was successful with this, my taming efficiency was now absolutely ruined, although at least the scorpion gave me the necessary chitin to make a saddle for him. With my new pet now tamed, there was only one fitting name for this dino, and that was Pidgey. Here on out starts a trend where each dino will be named after a similar Pokemon, so I hope some of you are into that. Back at base, I quickly harvested some metal with the help of Pidgey's weight reduction ability, and then headed on back out to gather some cementing paste from beaver dams. Back at base, Petrie decided that he clearly didn't want to leave, and despite my best efforts to punch him off the cliff, he just refused to go. I left him for now in the hope that he would eventually leave me alone and go enjoy his life of freedom. It was now past day 10, and a new slot had opened up once more, so I decided to have a go at the wyverns again. This time I was a lot more prepared, and with my harpoon gun, I could net the wyvern for 60 seconds and chunk it out before taking its precious crystals. However, despite the fact that I had done all of this correct, I made one fatal error in not finishing the wyvern off. You see, while I was flying away happy with my victory, I was given a rude reminder of my mistake, and I was forced to jump off Pidgey to save his life, sacrificing mine instead. I did make my way back to look for my body and gather my stuff, before going out to look for a blood wyvern to tame. I was about to tame this one actually before it rudely lifted off from the ground, before I had a chance to put a nice crystal up its butt. This did, however, give me the chance to explore this nice looking cave, which looked very interesting. I decided I would come back to it. The wyvern eventually did land again, and I tamed him up with a singular crystal. There was only one fitting name in this wyvern in my mind, and I named him Charizard, which probably would have been more fitting for an Ember wyvern, now I think about it. I then went back to the cave to have a much better in-depth look, and found it had some silica pearls inside, which I gleefully accepted, as you can never have enough silica pearls. Deeper into the cave, I actually found the artifact of the Clever. On the way back to base, I found another artifact, just in the middle of the desert, which was the artifact of the Hunter. Now sadly, these artifacts were not used to summon the Gamma Wyvern Queen, and with my odd assortment of dinos I was about to have, I wasn't particularly eyeing up anything more than Gamma at this stage. Now back at base, I made myself up a set of flak, including a ramshackle pair of leggings from this blueprint I'd gotten in a red drop, before heading out to the area known as Emberfall. Now originally I wanted to see if I could perhaps find an Ember Wyvern here to tame, but after flying around for a short while and not managing to find anything, I eventually had to settle for this level 95 Procoptodon here. Halfway through the taming process, I then got attacked by a group of raptors, which really showed me quite how weak Charizard was, as he was almost killed by these two measly raptors. After eventually disposing of the raptors and netting the Procoptodon again, I tamed him up and named him Kangaskhan. Now obviously Kangaskhan wasn't going to lead us to eternal glory in the boss fight, but kangaroos are insane at gathering berries with their kick attack, so making narcotics would be much easier now. After making the saddle, I followed this up by making an electrical generator, and then some stone and trank arrows. I then took a trip to the snow biome to murder some poor baby penguins for their organic polymer. I then used this polymer to make some more nets for my harpoon launcher, as I seemed to be going through these at the speed of light. I then went looking for a Rex and found a couple of decent ones, including this 135. Its stats weren't quite doing it for me though, and as I would only be allowed one Rex, I had to make sure it was just right. Luckily, just below base, I found a 150, which has slightly better stats, and with the extra bonus points of course it would get, I decided to go for it. I made a stone trap for him, which I wanted to kite him into, only for the Rex to have different ideas and walk off a cliff and get stuck in a canyon. Due to that, I decided to take a break from the Rex and look for something else new entirely, and in the area named Tundra Falls, I found myself a 130 UT. Now, this was clearly going to be a bit of a pain to tame, quite frankly, as whenever I went near him, he would fear my bird, and he also had this gang of Carnos defending him. So with that in mind, I did another 180 and turned my attention back to the 150 Rex in the same valley, and made a new set of stone dinosaur gateways. After making the trap and kiting it in, I set up on the cliff for a rather long time, shooting him with trank arrows. Due to the fact that the Rex had 15.4k torpor and only a primitive crossbow, I must have spent almost half a day in game shooting this thing. I also had to head back to my nearby base at one point to repair my crossbow, as the Rex was close to being knocked out. Upon my return, the Rex had somehow found his way out of the trap, but luckily he had managed to trap himself in an enclosed valley in the first place. So after knocking him out, later that night he tamed up with 34 points into HP and 38 points in melee, which I was pretty happy with, as it was a decently well-rounded Rex, which would be key for my chances in the final fight. At base I made my new Rex a saddle, and I named him Tyrant, and then set off to get some levels from a herd of Brontos which could be found near base. In this time we had now hit day 25, meaning I returned my attention back to the 130 UT, who I had been eyeing up earlier on. After I managed to net him again, I just tried to spam as many dino gates around him as possible, but this clearly still wasn't doing the trick. So I was forced to resort to the net and trank for 60 seconds, and then run away strategy, before it feared my wyvern. Eventually, after lots of running and shooting, and a quick break back to base to repair my crossbow, I did eventually manage to get the UT knocked out also. I tamed him up and named him Rampardos. Now, UTs in single player have the ability to do their stat boosting roar, even without anyone actually riding them, so I thought this would certainly be a useful tame to have for the finale. Just before day 30, I went artifact hunting, and stumbled across this very large cave with actually high level creatures in it. I didn't fancy going further in case it dismounted me, so I decided to leave and head down to the river just below, to grab the first artifact that I actually needed to summon the Gamma Wyvern Queen, which was the artifact of the Skylord. I then returned to the area known as the White Shoals, which is where I originally started this Nuzlocke from, where I netted this Blood Wyvern and tranked him out to grab some crystals. I had decided that Charizard sadly just wasn't really cutting it anymore, and I would exchange him in return for this 145 Blood Wyvern I'd found. I think this is fine within the rules as Charizard didn't die, and instead I released him, but if there is any hardcore Nuzlocke fans out there, let me know. With my new Wyvern tamed, I set Charizard free, and left him to wander the shores, and hopes he enjoyed his newfound free life. I put him on passively also, meaning that he should be able to get away from anything that went after him. On the way back to my base, I stopped off at this yellow drop, which had a few nice goodies for me, before making a big narcotic making session at base. The next morning I realised I hadn't actually tamed my new Wyvern yet, so in honour of its rather decent level, I named it Moltres after the legendary Pokemon. While I waited for day 35 when I could tame another creature, I actually did a bit of base work. I made an industrial grill and placed it down, followed by a generator to go with it, which was causing me lots of issues with the powering. But eventually I did manage to get it sorted and made myself a refrigerator to store my supplies of cooked meat in. I harvested some metal from my forges to keep them burning, and set off back into the wild, towards the White Shoals once more. To summon the Gamma Wyvern Queen I would need 5 crystal talons, so I set about netting wyverns and then munching them to death, with Moltres of course. The next tame that I was searching up was this level 168 Tech Quetzal. Now, along with Scorched Earth, Crystal Isles is the only other map as far as I'm aware that allows flyers in the boss fight, so I figured a high level Tech Quetzal wouldn't do us any harm at all. Little did I know, however, that while the Quetzal might not do any harm, the whole taming process would do lots of harm to my mental health. My whole taming strategy was based around netting the Quetzal and then trank arrowing it until it got back up. The problem with this was that firstly, Quet's torpor drops very quickly, so I didn't have much time to waste, and shooting nets off the back of a wyvern who constantly just wants to land was not the easiest thing in the world. So I returned to base with a brand new plan. I wanted to try and trap the Quetzal in with dino gateways and thatch roofs. Returning to the Great Valley where this area is called in what I'm hoping is an elite Land Before Time reference by the way, I was with renewed hope. Only to net my own wyvern instead of the Quetzal at the very first attempt. A Rampy classic moment. When I eventually did manage to net the Quetzal after parachuting down from my wyvern, I ended up getting harassed by ants the entire time while trying to place the trap. One of the most frustrating things that can possibly happen to you when you have less than 60 seconds to fully surround an abnormally large bird in structures. After trying this a second time and still having no success with it, it was clear that I would once more need another strategy. So it was time to bring back good old Pidgey. We had now hit day 40 by the way, meaning this Quetzal was taking so long to tame that I was storing up creature tokens in the bank. Now I'm sure a lot of you have seen this method of taming before. It's as simple as grappling to your bird and then directing it to fly using the whistle or move here command. This is one of the most common methods to tame a Quetzal solo, and quite frankly, while it does work, I would mainly recommend this if you are going for a starter Quetzal, one that is a fair bit lower than this level 168 that I'm attempting to tame. What made this taming method a hell of a lot easier, however, was the net gun. I did have to return home to make more nets at one stage, but luckily as I was out of render distance, the Quetzal torpor wasn't draining. After eventually knocking him out, he had managed to fly out of the Great Valley area of the map, and seemed to be in an unknown area which didn't have a name, which was great for me as it opened up an opportunity later to tame another dino in the Great Valley. After getting the Quetzal some prime with Moltres and babysitting it with some narcotics, it tamed up not too far away from day 45. I named it Skarmory, which I thought was a pretty fitting name for a giant bird made out of metal. I certainly had some catching up to do now on the taming, thanks to the extra time that I had to dedicate to Skarmory, but before I was ready to do anything else, I would first have to repair my flak set. Setting out once more, I decided to visit the Redwood, and a zone called the Great Forest North. In there I found a 145 mammoth, which I found odd as I didn't realise mammoths spawned in the redwoods, more the snow. But there we have it. Mammoths have a great base HP stat and actually do some okay damage, so I decided to tame this female up. Next, I visited the Central Oasis, a location found between the swamps and the desert, where I got myself a 130 Sarco. He was also a pretty easy net and knockout tame, and upon taming I named him Sandile. On the way back to base I picked up the now tamed mammoth and named him Mamoswine, back at base. I was running low on cementing paste now to make some more of these saddles, so I set off with Moltres to the area that I'd knocked the Quetzals out, as I remembered seeing some beaver dams there. After gathering the cementing paste from the dams, I found the artifact of the Brute, which, as with most other artifacts on this map, can be found completely out in the open. On day 50 we reached the halfway point of this challenge, and I caught myself a 150 woolly rhino from the zone of the Northern Isles. Upon taming I named him Rhyhorn, which I thought suited him perfectly. I then went out looking for the artifact of the Devious, which is located in the Wyvern Scar here in the desert. Now, this is my first time properly playing Crystal Isles, as I've mentioned, so I didn't quite understand that some of these wyverns are known as wyvern heirs, which means they're aggressive. In short, I spent around 10 minutes running away from these wyverns from the Scar, losing them one by one in the trees, and barely making it back to base alive, also without the artifact that I'd originally gone looking for. I would also need to kill an alpha crystal wyvern, but I decided to leave that problem for another day, as Moltres was not up to any fighting. At base, I made a saddle for Skarmory before trying my hand at some beer making. I kind of assumed that I would be able to irrigate this beer barrel here with the natural water source found at my base, but I soon realised that this didn't seem to be possible. With the beer brewing, in case I found a decent level Chalice Eco, I took my new Rhino out to get some levels, and let's just say I ran him into some trouble. Sadly, Rhyhorn was no more, and this of course meant that woolly rhinos were no longer an option for the remainder of the 100 days. It was now well after day 55 though, so I did head out to look for something else to add to my assortment of creatures. In the snow biome in a region called the Eldritch Isle, I found myself a 135 Carnotaurus, which I thought, why not, and tamed up. Sadly, Carno's bleed attack doesn't affect bosses, unlike a certain Deinonychus, which sadly isn't tameable on this map. But it does still possess semi-decent base damage, so I decided to tame him up. Due to the fact that Moltres had largely healed up from the last visit, I returned to the Wyvern Scar to look for the artifact of the Devious, and managed to get out alive without an issue this time. Nearby to the Wyvern Scar was the Griffin Trench, so I thought, why not help myself to a Griffin? This 145 was actually pretty good, as it had 31 points into HP and 29 into melee. Of course, do bear in mind with flying creatures that they do have no wasted points, aka points in movement speed, so while this was still good, it wasn't next level insane. Taming this Griffin up was starting to give me some Quetzal vibes though. All went well until it went high on torpor and began to run away, which happened to be right in the direction of the nearby Wyvern heirs, which were still sniffing around looking for me from my last visit to the trench. Eventually its torpor dropped and it did begin to aggro on me once more. Once then I could net it, and while I didn't pass out on the spot, after following it for a short while, it was soon time to tame it. I waited through the night, and once it tamed up, I named him Articuno. The next tame I found was this level 145 Ferrezino, which was in the Great Valley once more. Now, I had been on the lookout for a high level ferry since the start of this challenge, as their damage is one of the highest in the whole game. This 145 really was nothing special stat wise, but high level Ferrezinos are often pretty hard to come by, so I still thought that I would tame him. I did do a very stupid thing here though, and went drop hunting while it was taming, completely forgetting that Ferry Torpor drop is one of the quickest in the entire game. So I had to net him up once more and then dash back to base at the speed of light to get him some narcotics to keep him knocked out with. Thankfully all did go well. I returned with the narcotics and we tamed the Ferrezino up. I named him Cypher due to his huge clawed hands. I now had a few days before I could tame my next creature, but there was a key job to do. Returning to the Wyvern Scar, I had spotted an Alpha Blood Wyvern, level 75. I had never fought one of these before, but in a similar way to Alpha Wyverns, if you are going to attempt to kill them, having a Wyvern of the same type is your best bet, as its special attack just doesn't damage you. After a short period of munching on Moltres, we took the Alpha down and took its tribute. Back at base, I farmed up myself some more arrows before having a look at what I wanted to tame next. I originally thought about taming a Kentrosaurus, but I couldn't find a high enough level one. Not far from that though, in the area known as the Fire Swamp, I did find myself a level 130 Spino. Now this thing was a real pain to tame, as once he began torpor running, I found myself on foot in the swamp, chasing around a Spino on steroids, thanks to the water boost he gets. I did manage to knock him out eventually though, and after gathering some prime and waiting through the night, I named him Crocodile. A good name if I say so myself. At base, I made Crocodile a saddle, before taking him out for a quick level up session, which thankfully lasted a lot longer than the Rhino level session did. On day 75, I found this level 150 Ankylo. Yep, I know it looks like I'm getting pretty desperate here, and that's because I was. At this point I was sort of running out of creatures to tame, but Ankies do possess some of the highest base damage in the entire game, so it may not seem quite as daft as you think. He tamed up later that day, and I cried him up before returning to base to enjoy a nice berry run with Kangaskhan. It was now time to ramp up my preparations for the finale. I took a visit to Green Obelisk where I made enough cryopods to bring my whole army over when it was time to do the boss. I was also missing a couple of required artifacts needed, but due to the fact that Crystal Isles is the most artifact friendly map in the entire game, it didn't take me too long to take a quick trip over to the Redwood biome and gather the artifacts of the immune, which can be found in this log here. On day 80 you can really begin to see me scraping the barrel here. I ended up taming a 145 Morellatops. This was partially due to me running out of creatures, but also zones of the map. Most of the zones that I could still actually tame creatures in just didn't possess many good creatures, so I just had to take what I get. For example, I did want a Megalosaurus, but everywhere I found them was in a zone that I'd already caught a dino in. Later that day, I finally got a good drop, which would actually be somewhat useful for me. This red drop here contained an Ascendant Mammoth saddle. I had a fair few okay saddles, but none for creatures I'd actually tamed, so this was the first one, which I was quite happy about. As day 85 came around, I debated around taming this Thorny Dragon, only to get a slight change of heart when this 130 Raptor attacked me. I decided to tame this as I wanted to include a raptor to pay homage to the most successful video on my channel to date, where I attempted to beat the whole of Ark with just raptors in 100 days. Spoiler for all of you who don't watch me on Twitch, I am going to try this challenge one more time before Ark 2, so be on the lookout for that. I named him Staraptor after one of my personal favourite Pokemon, and then collected the very last artifact that I needed to summon the boss. It was now day 95, and I cryoed up my army ready for battle, before beginning to throw them out at the Green Obelisk. You might have noticed that I didn't tame a dino on days 90 or 95. Well, that is because I would receive some helping hands from some old friends from past challenges. I decided to bring back some old favourites to the channel and bring a direwolf from my 100 Days of Direwolves video and a mantis from, you guessed it, my 100 Days of Mantises video. I did give them new names of course to fit the theme of the challenge, but it was great to have them back in the picture, and hopefully they will be able to carry me over the line. The very last thing I needed was some primal crystals, which you get from knocking out crystal wyverns. I knocked out one absolutely fine, and then a second, only to get killed by a Capro out of nowhere when trying to harvest it. This was extra annoying as it made me have to return to base specially to repair my armour, but I did end up coming back and knocking out the same wyvern and taking its crystals. It was now time, with my strange assortment of dinos, to take on the final boss, and see if the first Ark 100 Day Nuzlocke could be pulled off. Enjoy the fight. 100 Days Nuzlocke, we have the most random assortment of creatures here. The plan is turn the UT on Auto Courage first of all, and then when we get in here, I'm going to jump on Mighty Yenna and try and go behind the back of the wyvern. I have no idea. I've never done the Crystal Isles boss fight before. I have no idea how hard or easy this is going to be. Let's find out. Let's find out. Okay. Let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. Right, where's Mighty Yenna? There it is. Okay, can we get out of here? Nope, I need to move the UT first. Oh, ow. Oh no, Pidgey. Pidgey. 400k? Oh dear. We might be in trouble there. We might be in big trouble. What's doing 1k damage? Something's doing a lot of damage. Ow. Oh, doing good. Alright, everyone over it, guys. Everyone over it. I've heard this is the corner to come to. Passive, passive, passive. Oh, the UT does 300 damage, I think. There we go. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, some good damage, this. Okay, it's down to 294k. Oh, it's landed. It's landed. Uh-oh. I need to try and get behind it. Oh, no. Oh, Kangaskhan, no! I need to try and get behind it. There we go. Underneath its legs. Yes. Yes. I swear it's only hitting for like 400 or something, though. Alright, he's up, he's up, he's up, he's up. Alright. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Everyone back over here in the corner. Oh, come on, Torterra. You've got to get involved, lad. I've never thought we'd necessarily have a chance when we spawned in, but I think we could do. I mean, it's looking decent at this point, really. Although a lot of our dinos are getting quite low, actually. I don't know how the flyers are doing. I mean, how is D doing? 167k. Okay. Oh no, Mantis, Lorantis, he's gone. Oh, it's because they don't like getting setting on fire, do they? They get set on fire, they lose a load of health. Forgot about that. Ah, yeah. Yeah, Mantis was never a good idea. Oh no. Oh, we needed to. If I had a shotgun here, this would be over. A decent shotgun, and this would be over. Underneath its feet. This is good. Oh, Moltres, no. 100k to go. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is good. This is good. They're all up now. This is much better damage. Rex is in there. Oh, no. Camerupt. The Meroletops. The main source of DPS is gone. Ah. Naughty Rampy. Oh, has he just got up again? No. No. Why did you get up again? Not gonna lie. No, the raptor. Come on, Quetzal. Quetzal to do the business. 500 damage. Crocodile's dead. One of my main DPSs is gone. Oh, my ferry. My ferry's over encumbered. Right. I'm on the Ferrazino. We've changed. We need to get in there. We need to get back in the corner. We need to get back in this corner where Torterra is right now. He keeps getting stuck. Yes. Come on, come back down again. Come back down again. Yes, yes. 37k. Down again. One more time. Go on. You know you want to. There we go. Let's kill the baby ones. It's not been enough baby slaughtering on this Rampy 100 days as normal. Got to make up for it somehow. Why have we gone away from the corner? Why have we gone away from the corner? The magic corner. 11k. Oh, Garchomp, no. Skarmy's got 80 health. 80 health. 80 health. No! Oh, he was so close. Come on. Yes! A Rampy 100 days victory. A rare occurrence. 2 challenges in a row. And these are the remaining heroes. We only got 5 left. We really only got 5 dinos left. Oh, wow. Articuno, Tyrant, Mamoswine, and of course Mighty Enna, who played a huge part. But I think these were all huge. Tyrant, what a Rex. What a great Rex. Mamoswine. I forgot about the Ascendant Saddle on Mamoswine. That was probably huge in keeping her alive. What a victory. What a victory. Thank you all for making it so far into this video. I hope you did enjoy, and if so, please do consider leaving a like on the video, as it really does help promote it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. On that note, I do want to thank you all so much for your support over on YouTube this year, I never would have dreamed to be at this point when I first started making content in January this year, so I feel incredibly humbled to have amassed a following on various platforms this year. I'll be back in January with my next video, which I know some of you guys are waiting for, which will be 100 Days of Genesis 1 with Sarkos, and in the meantime, I hope you all have a lovely holiday season and take care.